Welcome to Cancer and Peace Moments. This is Peter. These moments are 15-minute clips of the larger episodes. Blessings. The sea change for my cancer journey was in 2015, as I've said before, because it was a surgery that presented metastatic end-of-life terminal cancer for me. But a year before that, my utopian life, as I thought it was, busy lawyer. I was a prominent lawyer in my area. I was prominent in the church. I was an elder. My wife and I met in high school, and we immersed our kids in Christian faith, and we had 6 children, and even did some homeschooling and private school, all that. On the outside, we looked like we were all together. Everything was basically perfect within our family, except the normal things. But what was going on underneath the water was our oldest daughter had been on a 6-year journey into drugs and alcohol and had to go to rehab twice, overdosed, survived that, left high school. So we had that challenge. That was our oldest daughter. And just existed through that challenge, didn't really bring it out prominent, didn't really drill down that much into what it all meant. And then at the same time, my wife and I were having marital struggles. And the marital struggles became bad. And at one point, I looked at my life and my marriage and thought everything is crumbling, really. I finally, in other words, got out of denial and faced the reality of my situation. And everything I was trying to hold together was falling apart. And my marriage was falling apart, my family. I had already been on my health journey for 9 years at that point, and I was about to face a serious metastatic issue. But the utopian life that I thought I had created was a fiction. And when in the deep hurts of my marriage, that's when I got into, I said to someone at church, I don't know what to do, but my marriage is falling apart. And I felt shame about it. I didn't want to talk about it really. But I ended up with a Christian counselor doing a step 4 inventory. And this particular counselor had been a CR pastor, had been a recovery pastor. Celebrate Recovery was the program. And so I was like, well, what is this step 4 inventory thing? Mm-hmm. So that was my first door into recovery, mm-hmm. into the recovery. Recovery for me, if someone said, Peter, how do you define recovery? I would say for me, it's been working through 12 steps with my higher power, Jesus Christ, and the Beatitudes with my higher power, Jesus Christ, and doing an inner deep dive into my emotional life, into my past, my family of origin, and really discovering who I am and what makes me tick, and my character defects, and also my positives. So I had never done anything like that before. And so that to me was recovery, was going into, if someone said to me, Peter, there's a 12-step program for you, I would have said, I'm not an addict, so I'm not going to, that has no bearing on me. Meanwhile, what I found out was that 12 steps means that I'm going to recognize my powerlessness and make peace with God, peace with myself, and then powerfully peace with others, making amends, all that stuff. And I found out, wow, this is the deep dive, the inner journey.
And so what happened to me is I went through those early formative years with that insecurity. I developed a lot of character defects, some really sharp elbows, and ways of hiding in my life. And somewhere in my high school years, I was successful at something. and that was in a sports outlook, but also in some academics outlook. And when I recognized I was successful at it, it was just like injecting a drug, and I went just crazy on, oh, wait a second, if I can actually, if I'm not the dumb kid or the underperformer, then I just started going all out on performance based. And I'm going to call it performance based addiction because that's where I began to get my value in life, was to try to outperform. And that took me all the way through, my college years into corporate years. I worked in a Wall Street bank, and it was all about getting value based upon performance.
Mm.
And so as I look at that and I recognize I was getting value in the wrong place, and I was carrying this underlying thing I'm going to call insecurity, not being enough, as my big issue. And my bet is that almost everybody in their life carries that, has that feeling. It's like, I think most of us have that experience. I don't think I'm alone in this. Having heard enough testimonies and people who are willing to look inside, have carried that something that they don't feel like enough. They need to cover up the pain of that. And the piece about recovery that's interesting is that what draws most people into recovery is the wall, what we call the wall. And so a major issue happens in your life. For you, you shared, hey, you had divorce, you had issues that were underlying your family that were underneath of that, and it caused you to go to a counselor or whatever. And for me, I also had a marriage that was failing, and I was hitting things in my life where success, while it had happened in many areas, I was failing in certain areas of my life, and that failure was a wall. And I'm going to put the tie now between recovery and cancer, and for all of us, I believe that God invites us into a journey into ourselves when we hit a wall. And cancer is a wall because it forces you to ask, hey, why me? What does this mean to my life? Am I going to die? You're going to ask all the hard questions. And so if you look at the big walls we talked about, we had the lessons from Job. And Job had all the big walls. He lost his family, he lost his health, he lost his wealth. And the question was a question about, is God by himself with nothing else, was he enough? And so the big tie for me, and why I stick in recovery, it's not about freedom now from some particular hurt. It is in the inner journey. It's a journey of intimacy. And so I always think of recovery now as it's a journey into intimacy with God. And you mentioned also with others. And that has been the big aha, is that my own character defects, my own insecurity meant that I pushed others away. I kept information private. If I felt like somebody was a threat, I would attack first with a sharp elbow. I would give them a harsh word. I might criticize their clothing, the way they looked, or something to get attention on them in a negative way. And it was abusive. Until I was able to see that I had this deep insecurity that I need to release to God, then I could start loving others because I didn't need to attack. I didn't need to protect myself. And any of these big events, such as a life-threatening disease, a failed marriage, death or great loss, these are walls, and they're an invitation to a journey of intimacy with God, to know yourself and to surrender. And it gets to like in Job, what we got down to was Job was completely stripped away of everything. And the real question that was there is, do you want those things, or am I enough by myself? Just me, not having to know all the details why, not needing to have every answer answered. Am I enough by myself? This is God's question. I think that's God's question to every cancer patient, every person hitting the wall. And recovery explores that. But you do it one little piece at a time. And so you describe this piece of recognizing you're powerless. The wall takes you to that place where I had to figure out for myself, I was powerless to fix my marriage, the issues in my life, my insecurity. I had to release those things to God. And because it gave me the ability to love again, it opened the door to healing relationship in marriage, and it opened the door to healing relationship with my kids, and then opened the door to healing relationship with friends around me. And within a year or two or three, some of my friends were coming, like, hey, Sean, something's changed. And we see that things have changed in you. And it's because I didn't need to give a sharp elbow. I didn't need to protect. I could actually express love. And so when I say recovery, what I'm saying is I'm doing a journey of deep intimacy with God and others.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the cancer journey is an invitation for that.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully you're hearing on the need for recovery in this journey. It's not really about 12 steps or a program. It's about principles that are important to all of our lives. And
Mm-hmm.
for finding peace in a cancer journey, if you don't do those first 3 steps, you're probably not going to find peace. You may be striving to fix, solve, but not finding peace.
Mm-hmm.
And peace comes when you walk through those 3 doors
Mm-hmm.
that you're talking about. And there's more doors past that. And I'll give a quick something here is that the next step is the inventories, the step 4, where you do a serious and moral, spiritual inventory. And that's really taking a look at your life. And we keep talking about this word inner journey. And that's what a moral inventory is you journey inward and you take account of where you're at. And we have this concept, we're going to talk about it more in later podcasts, but it's like this idea of knowing yourself so that you can know God. Such a big thing that we talk about in inventory. And that's why when you hear me start talking about it's a journey of intimacy, is that I heard this recently when we were doing the Cure book, and it said, if you're wearing a mask, so if you put on a mask, you're unable to receive love. Only the mask can be loved.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the real you. And
Mm-hmm.
so you have to be vulnerable. You have to be willing to be exposed. And to do that, you actually have to know who you are. And so for yourself to be loved by others or by God, you have to actually allow your real self to be exposed. Because if you're actually putting a mask on, you're literally just letting the mask receive all the love that would or could come to you, and you don't actually experience love. The mask does. This false character, this persona that you've put on is loved, but not the person that's really inside. And it's such an important concept when you think about knowing yourself to know God. If you don't know yourself, you're not able to be vulnerable and expose that real self to others, you're not capable of receiving love. And so the journey here that you're talking about is so important. And as you progress forward, and so we talk about, you hear the word 12 steps, there really are. You heard Peter talk about the first 3, and I threw the 4th on here of, as you start to know yourself and you're able to tear that mask off, pull that mask off and show yourself, you're able to experience and receive love. And so I think it's our belief that for a cancer patient, as you're hitting this wall, is to allow yourself to be seen as the person you really are and to be loved that way. And what's going to happen, I think, in most cases, is that in a safe environment, at least, when you expose the real person, you'll experience real love. And this is why there's great peace in knowing that you can be loved just as you are.
Right.
And this is such an important part of that journey. And so this is the invitation. That's why I call it a journey of intimacy, is because it's deeply intimate to share things about yourself that you've been protecting, that you think you might need to protect because they're vulnerable and scary. Is like, what if they know this? Or what if I'm not enough, if I don't feel like enough? But you expose that. And if you're loved just like you are, it's a journey of great intimacy. It's such a great part of that. And that's what the call is here.
Yeah. And I'll just say that, because I feel like I should, is that there are supernatural perks with Jesus as my higher power. And I will say that I've experienced peace when I should not have been experiencing peace, and joy, love, patience even, and kindness. Attributes that aren't naturally part of me, but so I'm putting a plug in here for that relationship with Jesus, that personal relationship with the Holy Spirit. This is a real relationship. And my hope and prayer is that people who don't have a relationship with Jesus will will have one, and then experience their own love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, all that stuff. Thank you for listening. Have a great day. Blessings.